Welcome to the Explainer, everyone. Today, we are zeroing in on an absolute blockbuster of a scene from the swayamvara parva of the Mahabharata. We're going to visually break down the legendary moment of the unstringable bow. Seriously, grab a front row seat, because we're looking at one of the most magnificent, high-stakes moments in literary history. Okay, let's dive into this, because this question drops us right into the absolute heart of the narrative. Picture this massive, packed arena. The ultimate prize is on the line, but to win it, a suitor has to string this impossibly heavy bow and shoot a highly complex target. All the heavyweight kings have tried. All of them have completely failed. And then, right out of the crowd of ascetics and scholars, an unknown youth steps forward. It's your classic David and Goliath setup, but, played out on this epic, mythological scale. The extreme tension in the amphitheater really comes from this massive, stark contrast. On one side, you've got these celebrated kshatriyas, these legendary warrior kings like Salya. These are guys endued with tremendous might, utterly accomplished in the science of arms. Yet they all failed. They gave up. On the other side, stepping right out of the crowd, is this Brahmana youth. To the naked eye of the onlookers, he's a mere stripling. He looks unpracticed in arms and, frankly, weak in strength. The gap between the brutal challenge and his apparent resume literally couldn't be wider. So the crucial point is understanding exactly who this youth actually is. The text refers to him as the high-souled Jishnu or Partha, but of course we know him best as the hero, Arjuna. As he confidently walks toward the bow, possessing this radiant presence, described as having the complexion of Indra's banner, the arena reacts instantly. The principal Brahmanas seated in the assembly are thrown into an absolute frenzy. They immediately start shaking their deerskins and raise this massive echoing clamor. But here's the thing, the crowd is completely divided on what's about to go down.
A really vocal faction of the crowd strongly doubts him, and their panic, it just ramps up the tension. These are men of intelligence and foresight, and they are terrified of public humiliation. They're arguing that if this boy attempts an untried task and fails, which, let's be real, they totally assume he will, the entire body of Brahmanas will be rendered completely ridiculous in front of all these assembled monarchs. They frantically want to forbid him from even trying. They think he's just stepping up out of vanity, childish daring, or boyish unsteadiness. They're basically begging to stop him before he embarrasses the whole group.
Now, what's really interesting about this next detail is how the believers in the crowd fiercely counter all that doubt. They don't just sit back and say, hey, give him a chance. No, they defend his capability using these incredibly powerful sensory descriptions. They look closely at him, past that unassuming exterior of a scholar, and they recognize the hidden, raw physical power coiled up inside him.
I mean, just listen to how they describe him. They point out that his shoulders, arms, and thighs are so well built they literally resemble the trunk of a mighty elephant. They note his patience, steadfast and totally unmoving like the massive Himavat mountain. They observe his gait, which is even and deliberate like a lion's, and they sense a resolute prowess comparable to an elephant in rut. The text brilliantly uses the raw forces of nature and the animal kingdom to frame Arjuna's hidden strength. These believers are proving a timeless point. True capability is so often hidden beneath an unassuming exterior. They argue, look, if he didn't have the strength or resolution, he'd never walk up there of his own accord. Furthermore, the crowd drops this fascinating thematic justification for his attempt. They essentially argue that a Brahmana should never be disregarded no matter how they look. Even if they're emaciated, weak, abstaining from food, or literally just living on air, they are strong in their own unique energy. Through strict vows and sheer perseverance, the crowd declares there is absolutely nothing in the three worlds that they cannot accomplish. It's actually a really powerful reminder for all of us, right? How internal energy, discipline, and intense focus can entirely overcome what other people perceive as physical weakness. And this brilliantly illustrates how the crowd backs up their philosophy with some serious historical proof. They're bringing out the receipts. They cite legendary precedents to confirm that their kind can absolutely achieve the impossible. They remind the doubters of Rama, the son of Jamadagni, who single-handedly wiped out all the Kshatriyas in battle. They bring up Augusta, who, fueled purely by his Brahma energy, literally drank the fathomless ocean. So the logic is, with legends like these in our lineage, why on earth couldn't this youth string a mere bow? Finally, the debate ends. The frantic, tense whispering and shouting subsides into this profound, deliberate calm. The crowd reaches a consensus. They declare, let this youth bend the bow and string it with ease. And the collective response from everyone is a simple, resonant, so be it. The entire noise of the amphitheater just falls away as Arjuna finally steps up to the weapon. He stands before it, completely unshakable, just like a mountain.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because Arjuna doesn't just run up and yank on the string. He engages in a highly focused, precise ritual. First, he respectfully walks a full circle right around the bow. Then, he bends his head in reverence to the Lord Isana, Shiva. Next, he deliberately centers his mind and remembers Krishna. Only after these meticulous steps does he actually reach out and take up the bow. I mean, the suspense here is absolutely razor thin. But real quick, before we hit the climax, we have to remember the sheer crushing impossibility of this task. This is a mighty bow that openly defied the absolute greatest warriors of the age. We're talking heavy-hitting monarchs like Rukma, Sunitha, Vakra, Radha's son Duryodhana, and Salya. They applied immense, grueling exertion to this weapon, and not a single one of them could string it. So the stage is set for either an epic, humiliating failure or a legendary triumph. And then it happens. Arjuna, who the text describes as being endued with energy like Vishnu himself, simply achieves the impossible. Where mighty kings literally strained and failed, Arjuna effortlessly strings the unstringable bow. And he doesn't just string it, he does it instantly, in the literal twinkling of an eye. The sheer explosive release of power in that split second completely shifts the atmosphere of the entire arena. He doesn't even miss a beat. He instantly grabs exactly 5 arrows. He takes aim and flawlessly shoots the mark, sending it crashing down to the ground through the hole in the machine above. A massive, decisive victory executed in mere moments. The aftermath? It is nothing short of cinematic chaos. A massive, explosive chain reaction happens everywhere, all at exactly the same time. A deafening uproar echoes in the firmament above and the amphitheater below. The gods themselves actually start raining celestial flowers from the skies right onto Arjuna's head. Down in the stands, thousands of Brahmanas are going wild, whipping their upper garments through the air in absolute ecstasy. But right next to them, the unsuccessful monarchs are crying out in loud exclamations of bitter grief and despair. Simultaneously, all the musicians strike up their instruments in concert, while bards and heralds immediately begin chanting sweet praises for the new hero. And through all this madness, King Drupada watches, filled with immense joy, even preparing his forces to back up the hero if the angry kings decide to attack. Now, amidst this unbelievable, deafening uproar, the text gives us this brilliant, surprising tactical detail. Right when the chaos and the noise are at their absolute peak, Yudhishthira, described as the foremost of all virtuous men, along with his twin brothers, hastily slip right out of the amphitheater. They quietly retreat back to their temporary home, making sure they maintain their disguise and stay safe, while everyone else in the arena is completely distracted by the spectacle. So smart. Back down in the center of the arena, Krishna, absolutely filled with joy at beholding this feat, walks right up to the victorious hero. He brings a white robe and a beautiful garland of flowers to honor Arjuna. Think about it. In just a matter of minutes, this unassuming youth has accomplished inconceivable feats, won the hand of Draupadi, and earned the deep, enduring reverence of the entire assembly of Brahmanas. As Arjuna follows his new wife out of the lists, we're really left with the overarching theme of this incredible scene. It's a story about looking past outward appearances, defying the intense pressure of expectations, and finding that quiet, unshakable focus within yourself to execute when it matters most. So it leaves us all with a pretty lingering thought. When you are faced with an utterly impossible task in your own life, do you listen to the loud voices of the doubters in the crowd, or do you quiet your mind and step up to the bow?